I'm not ashamed.
Why shouldn't we fear a person who is able to kill us? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Matthew on walking through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Matthew chapter 10. We're going to be reading from verses 27 to 33. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Matthew chapter 10, beginning at verse 27. Whatever I tell you in the dark, speak in the light, and whatever you hear in the ear, preach on the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a copper coin, and not one of them falls to the ground apart from your Father's will? But the very hairs of your head are numbered. Do not fear, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. Therefore, whoever confesses me before men, him will I also confess before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, him will I also deny before my Father who is in heaven. Jesus is talking to his disciples before sending them out to preach the gospel to Israel in what we call the limited commission. He has already told them what to preach. He has told them what to bring, which was basically nothing but what they had with them already. And he told them what to expect of the people, persecution. He now turns to the words of encouragement. Hearing that you're going to face persecution in the form of scourging and hatred, one might easily become discouraged, maybe even afraid to go out and teach. Jesus didn't want his disciples to have this type of fear. He told them that whatever he has told them in secret, in the dark and in the ear, they need to speak to the people in the light and on the housetops. Housetops in that time were tall, flat, and public. So proclaiming the gospel on the housetops would mean that all who came would be able to hear you. So if you ever hear the phrase, go shout it on the rooftop, or don't shout it from the rooftop, you know that this saying came from Jesus, talking about speaking loudly and publicly. When they preached Jesus this openly, yes, they would face persecution, but they weren't to fear the person who could kill the body, for they were unable to kill the soul. God is able to kill the soul and the body, so that is the one they should fear, the one who would do so if they disobeyed and were left unforgiven. What Jesus is meaning here is you will face persecution, but the worst these people can do to you is kill you. And if they do that, there's nothing more that they can do. If, however, you try to preserve your life through disobedience to God, you'll stand before God in a perilous state, for he will cast both your soul and your body into hell for all eternity. Hell is a real place, away from the presence of God, reserved as a place of punishment for those who reject God, 2 Thessalonians 1:7-9 says. I'm reminded what Hebrews 10:30 and 31 says. For we know him who said, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. And again, the Lord will judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. The apostles were being sent out to preach, and God expected them to obey, even if it meant persecution and death. He expects the same of us today. The encouragement, though, comes from verses 29 to 31. Jesus compares the apostles' lives to the lives of a sparrow. A sparrow is such a small bird and is sold very cheaply in the marketplace, and yet God knows and cares when each of them dies. Man is much more valuable to him than sparrows, for Genesis 1:26 says that we were created in his image. He knows the numbers of the hairs of the apostles' head, so Jesus said that God would protect the apostles on their journey here. Taken out of context, this passage can be taken to mean that God will save all of us from death when we're persecuted, but that's not what it means. Jesus was speaking to his apostles about this mission. Are there things we can learn from this passage? Yes, like the importance of following God and the comfort that we can have by following Christ. But perhaps the best lesson we can take from this passage is that God will be with the Christian even through death. Many of the apostles would later be killed for Christ, but God never abandoned them, and he will never abandon us. Other words of encouragement here can also be words of warning as well. Whoever confesses Christ before men, Christ will confess before the Father. Whoever denies Christ before men, Christ will deny before the Father. Confession in this context isn't really talking about the confession that Romans 10 verses 9 and 10 says that we make with our mouth about our belief in Jesus. The confession Jesus is talking about here is how we live our life in relation to serving him. It's easy to serve Christ when things are going good and we have no problems. However, when persecution arises and issues arise in our life, then our faith is truly tested. Do we live the life of a Christian even in hard times, Or do we, like Peter on the night before Jesus' crucifixion, deny Christ with our mouth and our deeds? If we live the life of a Christian until death, we've confessed Christ, and we're Christ's friend and follower. We can expect the reward of heaven then. If, however, we don't live the life of a Christian, we've denied Christ and can expect punishment. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Matthew 10, verses 34 to 42, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not ashamed.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
Of his cross.